So in the previous video, we took a look at some of the export options. So export to PDF and export to image. Now in this video, what I'd like to do is I want to show you how you can apply filters that are being set on the web page, and you can then apply those filters onto your dashboard. And we're going to write a little bit more code in this video. And it will take a little bit longer, but hopefully you'll fully understand the steps that you need to take in order to apply such a filter. Now, the type of filter that I want to apply is, in this dashboard, we have basically two sheets. We have one with the map and one with the, this is a bar chart showing sales by category and subcategory. So what I want to do is, I want to create a filter where people can type in the minimum value that they want to see in the bar chart and the maximum value that they want to put in. So at the moment, we don't have such a filter in the dashboard, so that'd be nice to have that in the web page. Okay, so let's first create the elements on the page to do that. So for that, we need two input boxes and a box to actually apply the filter values. So I'm going to create an input, and this input is going to have a type of number. So in HTML, you can basically assign it a type, and then that box, that input box will use that type of data. Now, input type of number, and let's give that an ID of a min value. So here people can type in the min value. And I'm going to put in a little placeholder saying min value, okay, and then close it off. I'm going to create another input with a type of number, and this one's getting an ID of max value and a placeholder of max value. Now, if I hit save in the HTML file, what you'll see is that we now have these input boxes, and they are for numerical values. So I can go up and down. Now, obviously, I can also type in any value that I want. So that's kind of there. Of course, this is not styled, but we're not here to do a design class. So the next thing that I'd like to do, actually, I need to close this one off, is to put in a button. Because when someone clicks on this button, and let's call this button the apply filter button, because when someone clicks on this, we want to actually apply that filter. So on the apply filter, that's the ID, then we're going to say apply filter. Okay. So now next to our box, we have an apply filter. So the idea is that people first put in their information, so the minimum value and the maximum value for this bar chart, and then hit apply filter, and it applies to this bar chart. Okay, cool. So now this is in the HTML. Now let's go to the JavaScript. And underneath this export image element, what we want to do is let's first create a where we can basically listen for clicks on the button. So we've done this a few times. Document.getElement by ID, and I call this apply filter. And actually, what we can do is previously we created variables for these, but I can actually already stick an event listener to this at the end. And then we're going to say on click. So when someone clicks on it, we want to run a function. And that function is actually console.logging clicking on the button. So what that will do now is if we open up the console here, and I click apply filter, it actually works. So clicking on the button, so that's nice. So let's above this one, let's create a function where we're actually getting the values and actually setting the values as well. So let's call this function get range values. And what we want to do in this get range values, first of all, what I want to do is get the values from the input. So I'm going to say my minimum value, and my minimum value is coming from that that input box. So I'm going to say document.getInput, element by ID, and I want to grab our min value. So that's the minimum value. And out of that object, so you're basically getting an HTML element back, we can actually get lots of stuff here. So if you, in VS Code, we can, for example, get some children and elements of those children. So if you have an object and it has nested children in it, you can get those. There's so many methods on this. The one that we want is actually the get value. So if we do dot value, that will actually get the value. We want to do the same for a max value equals document dot get element by ID max value dot value. Okay, so now actually what I'd like to do is test this. Okay, so in order to test this, what I often do is approach this in steps. So I'm going to say console.log, and I'm going to log my min value and my max value. Okay, so now rather than console.log and clicking on the button, what I'm going to say is actually execute the get range values function. So I'm going to execute this particular function. What it will do is it first of all gets the value someone types in. After that, for the min value. After that, it's doing for the max value, and then it's actually logging both values. Okay, this is just to test if it works. So I'm going to hit save. The browser is going to re-render, and I can key in any information. Let's do it from 100 to say 200. Let's hit apply filter. Now we see at the bottom in my console that we indeed get 100 and 200. So we have the two range values. That actually works. Okay, so we have the element done of getting data from the web browser. What I'd now like to do is then get this into the Tableau dashboard. Now, for that, what we need to do is we first need to get the workbook object. So with the workbook object, what we can do is we can apply certain methods to it, like apply a filter. Then we can, for example, remove a toolbar or something. There's lots of stuff is possible. All of it is in the documentation. But what we now first want to do is let's create a variable called workbook. And we can get the workbook by get workbook on the this object. So here we can see this.getWorkbook. What that will do is this is the actual this that's rendered, and then it's getting the workbook. Okay. Now, once we got the workbook, what we'd like to do is get the active sheet. Now, this is a little bit confusing with the Tableau JavaScript API because in Tableau, we often talk about sheets and multiple sheets make up a dashboard. But in here, a sheet can also be a dashboard. So if we look for the active sheet, in this instance, we're first getting the whole dashboard. And this whole dashboard consists of two sheets, the map and the bar chart. So what we're going to do is we're first going to get the active sheet in the window. Okay, this is the dashboard, and that dashboard consists of multiple sheets. So let's say constant active sheet, and that active sheet we can grab by doing workbook. So that's the variable we created up here. Dot get active sheet. Okay. And once we got that one, let's actually console.log active sheet. Okay. Now, what that will do is if I now hit apply filter, you can see that it's now logging this thing called global.tableausoftware.dashboard. Okay, so we have a dashboard here, and within this dashboard, we have certain objects. You can't really do much with this. Ideally, because this returns it's an object, but we can't really do much with it. So ideally, what you want to do is you follow the documentation, and then you use the methods that Tableau gives you, okay, rather than directly accessing this by using these key values. So we have the active sheet here. Now that active sheet is a dashboard. Okay. Now before what we can do is let's get all the sheets in the dashboard. Okay. So how we can do that is let's create a sheets variable, which is my active sheet dot get worksheets. Okay, active sheet dot get worksheets will get that. Now, how did I know that? Well, if I copy this, I go to the reference docs and I search for get worksheets. This will return, as you can see, these brackets here mention an array. So what that will do is it gives you a collection of worksheets contained in the dashboard. So in our instance, it will get us 2 sheets because filters are applied on a sheet level in Tableau. So every sheet, you can apply a filter to it. Same with the JavaScript API. You basically use the filters that are on there. So what we now have is we have content sheet is active sheets.get worksheets. Now, what we can do is let's log this sheets variable. If I then hit apply filter here, what we'll see is that it now says a 2. And this array has 2 elements. In JavaScript, counting starts at 0. So the first one is 0. If I then look at that one, this is the, actually these are the sheets in my dashboard. And the one that I want to apply it to is this one, is the second one. And the second one is in this case, my bar chart. Okay? So let's go in here and let's say const, let's call this sheet to filter equals, and that is actually the second one in this list. So it's number 1, that's my bar chart. Okay, you can see if I go down, you can see subcategory view, and that's the name of this one. And I figured that out. If I go into my Tableau public, we can see here, I have all the sheets that have been published, and this subcategory view is the name that I gave to my sheet. Okay, so we're now getting the sheet, and this is where we apply our filter. Okay, so in order to do that, we need to use the apply range filter async method. Now, how do I know that? Well, I also know that by reading the documentation. And if we go to the filters, if you go apply a range filter, for example, if I look for that and I scroll a little bit up, and these methods are on the worksheet class. So that means that we need to apply them to the actual sheet. And for the filtering, what Tableau has done, let me see. Yes, so here it basically gives us an example of what we need to do. We have worksheet, so that's in this case our sheet to filter, dot apply range filter async. Then we need to give it the name, so the sum of sales, or in our case, we can call it sales, and then the minimum value and the maximum value. Okay. Now, let's do that. So let's go back to the example here, and let's make this a little bit smaller. There we go. So what we'll do is my sheet to filter, and what I want to do is I want to apply that range filter async to it. Now, the first thing that we needed to add is which field we want to filter. And in our instance, we have a column called sales. And then we need to put in a range of values. And those range of values come from what people key into these boxes. So the minimum value and the maximum value. So the minimum value, and in our example, if I go back here, we can see that Tableau is doing that with an object. So this is a JavaScript object with min is the key and the value is 2000, max is the key and that one. You can name these keys, you need to call them like min and max. So let's also do that. let's go back here. And so let's do that as an object. And let's say the minimum value, and that is going to reference the thing that we wrote up here. So the value people key in. So that is min value. So let's put min value there. And what we then want is our max. So our max is our max value. And let's hit save. So you can see my Visual Studio Code automatically formats this nicely for me. If I then go and I type in the min value, so let's look for everything above 100,000 to say 300,000. Now let's apply the filter. And now you can see that actually removes some data because I'm actually filtering not on the sum, I'm filtering on the actual row level number. So if I hit apply again, you can see it now actually starts filtering. So you can then change this to say 200,000, apply that, and it starts filtering. So I can also say, let's bring this back to 100. If I then hit the filter, you can see it's doing that. It's basically because these ranges are now set on a row level. We can also pass this the sum of sales. It will then apply that on an aggregate level. So these are the aggregate levels here. So it's actually filtering on a row level here. Now, because this apply range filter async, what async basically means is that it's asynchronous. So this means you can string multiple filters after each other. And this async also means that it's promise-based. And within JavaScript, it's a topic that lots of people struggle with. But a promise is basically, and it's quite hard to explain actually, but what we can do is we can string .then here. So once the asynchronous function has executed, it basically either resolves or it's being rejected. Rejection basically means that an error happened, so it doesn't execute it. Resolved means that it was successful, and you can then do that. So you can then, after the callback, in this case the function has completed, you can execute something else, like another function. And this is a way to string multiple filters in a row. But in this case, I'm just going to say console.log filter applied, hit save. If we now set the min value to say 400 and the max value to 800,000, doesn't really matter, hit apply, and we get an unexpected error. Let's see what the error is. Let me refresh the page that might solve it. Min value to that, hit apply filter. Yeah, and there we go. So that removes the whole dashboard, the whole sheet. So yeah, here we can see the filter is then being applied. So that's pretty cool. So yeah, this video is probably a little bit longer than the previous ones that we did because we wrote a little bit more code. The good thing is that now you understand kind of accessing different sheets and applying the filters on that sheet. You can then also do something similar with parameters. You can also set actions and, for example, URL actions. So I'll see you in the next video.